Welcome to the development and testing change video for Cherwell iTicket. In this video, we will be following the workflow for change management as it flows from draft stage to the development stage, and then on to the testing phase. Generally, these activities are not required for infrastructure change. After the change is submitted for development, milestone tasks are created that act as gates between each stage of the change. These milestone tasks must be completed before you can move to the following stage in the change process. These stages or gates should not be jumped. If the system is blocking you from moving to the next stage, you should talk to the change owner before proceeding. We will now switch to the tool to see the tasks as they are being created by the movement from draft to development. As you can see, 4 tasks have been created. Each one of these tasks is the last task needed for that stage of the change. Development and promote to test needs to be completed before you can promote to test. System testing must be completed before you can move to the plan implementation stage. Implementation planning must be complete before you move to platform approval. And finally, implementation complete must be done before you can move it to the verification stage. Next, we walk through the process of adding or creating a task with a dependency, in this case a unit testing task. First, we will create the task without the dependency. We enter the title, pick the type, and put in a description of the task. Then press save so you don't lose your work. At this point, a common mistake is to attempt to link this task to an upstream task. Since in fact this is our first task, we can't link to anything prior. Instead, we must move to the next step and create the link from there. In this example, the next step after unit testing would be to promote to test. So in this case, we must open the task and link from there. When you click Link to Upstream Task, a box will appear that will allow you to pick the upstream task you're linking to. In this example, unit testing, note that once we link this task, 26301 status changes to dependency has not been met. This is because the upstream task 26383 has not been completed. To visualize this, you can go to the first task in the dependency chain and open the task. Then click on Visualization of the task. This will show you a very clear flow of how the items flow in their dependencies. However, if you don't pick the first task in the visualization stream, things may get a little confusing. In this example, I pick 26301 and look at the visualization there. In this case, the red arrow actually shows a backward flow or inverted flow. I'll move the items around on the screen so that they flow from top to bottom. 26383 flows down to 26301. However, the arrows indicate a backwards flow. This is incorrect. Whenever it's red, it's flowing in the opposite direction of the arrow. Now we're going to walk through how tasks are moved to completion so that changes can move to testing. First, a team and a task owner must be picked. In this case, I'll assign myself as an example. I should receive an email. Then I need to acknowledge that I'm taking ownership of the task. This will turn the task to green. Sometimes this takes a few seconds or will require an F5 press, which will refresh the screen. When I'm ready to begin work, I need to move the task to in progress. This will let others know if I'm working on the task. The change will turn the color to blue with a little blue hourglass indicator next to the line. Next, I need to add some completion notes and close the task. When the task is closed, it'll turn to gray, indicating that it is complete. When I updated the unit testing area, I forgot to save it. So when I go to the next step, the dependency has still not been met. When I click on it, it warns me of this. If I had saved it up front, that should have fixed the problem. Unfortunately, I didn't, so I have to save it there. Sometimes also hitting F5 will update the status. I'm going to try and take ownership of this task. The system won't let me because I'm not part of that team, so I need to change the team in this example so that I can take ownership of the task. Again, I hit F5 and the system warns me that I hadn't saved the change, something that if you do more frequently, you'll see less problems as far as refreshing if you update and save the changes more frequently. Again, just like in the last task, we have assigned ownership. We should receive an email, and at this point we need to acknowledge that we have taken ownership of this task. Once we take ownership, the green checkbox again shows up, and now we want to move it into in progress, and the little hourglass shows up that we are currently working on this particular task. Just like in the last example, we need to set the close code, put in a few comments, and then we can move this to closed status. Again, we have to save it. And we can now see that it's grayed out, and we can now move forward to submitting this for testing. So just a little review. We moved out of draft stage, showed how to create chained tasks, also might be called dependent tasks or upstream and downstream tasks, how to view them and their dependencies. We didn't really define the test plan since that's just a tab that needs to have some basic information in it. A detailed test plan can and should be attached to the change. The test plan tab is really just for summary or for simple test plans. While not required by the system at this point, we added a unit testing task. Unit testing should, of course, always be done before promoting code for full testing. We also closed out our tasks and promoted the change to testing. As you can see, when we submit for testing, it changes the status to testing, and then the next status would be plan for implementation. Other options in this status area are to return it to development. This would be in the case of something about the testing had failed and we needed to send it back to development for redevelopment. Otherwise, we have to go through the same basic status changes. In the testing phase, we'll need to follow our test plan, and once that's complete, we can go into our tasks, and just like in the prior areas, I'm going to quickly take ownership of the task to move this forward, and change my groups. Unfortunately, I can't approve as one of these groups, so I'm going to take ownership. And the next thing I can do is close after I've put in a close code and some comments. Now, the system's going to catch the fact that I cheated a little bit here and didn't go into user acceptance testing, and is going to force me to do what I should have done in the first place, which is send this off to have the user accept the changes and test the changes that are being made. So we're going to send off a request to the user to do that, And to speed things up, I'm going to go over to the approver and approve on behalf of the user. This approve on behalf option is not available to everyone and needs to be done by an admin. But the system did catch the fact that there wasn't a approver in here, so I'm going to take this and send it off, and basically that's the type of message the user's going to see. Since most of the users don't have direct access to Sharewell, they will need to reply to that email to have it accepted. In the form of review again, we went through testing. The system testing itself is obviously not in the system. We closed some of the tasks. We requested the user acceptance testing after the system caught us trying to cheat, and moved on to approval, and then moved forward to submit for plan implementation. One minor flaw in this video is that the testing phase can also return the entire effort back to development. That concludes the development and testing video. Next up is plan implementation, platform approval, and CAB.